من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. Sheikh Yasir, our respected Imam, the moderator, brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Alhamdulillah, our Sheikh has shared with us his concerns about the problems we're facing in the world today, not simply juristic problems, not simply legal solutions, but a larger solution, and that is the philosophical, intellectual solution. I think this is a wonderful muqaddimah or introduction to the topic that I am going to speak on, which is almost the same as what Sheikh Yasir had shared with you. I would start by saying that in the Muslim world today, and when I talk about the Muslim world, I'm more conscious about the world in Southeast Asia, the world of Indonesia, Malaysia, Brunei, Singapore, Thailand, Philippines, Cambodia, Vietnam, Laos. You have maybe a third of the Muslim population over there. And one of the challenges, or the many challenges, which Sheikh Yasir had mentioned, is also there. We have now the challenge of Neomodernism. Some scholars would call this a challenge of Neomodernism. Al-Mu'tazila al-Jadida. Or some would even see the problem of Neo-Zahirism, al-Zahiriyya al-Jadida. Of course, now we have the phenomenon of violence, and scholars tend to consider this a resurgence of neo-Khawarijism, the neo-Khawarij, who are very quick on takfirization, on putting everybody who disagrees with them as belonging to kufr. In Malaysia, Indonesia, and Southeast Asia, we have this problem of neo-Mu'tazilism or neo-modernism. And this, to my mind, boils down to the issue of a trend of thought which I would call ultra-exclusivism versus ultra-inclusivism. The ultra-exclusivism, or the idea of the neo-Khawarij, who would like to consider others who disagreed with a literalist interpretation of the Quran and the Sunnah as kuffar, and in some cases worthy of being eliminated violently. We hope that this challenge will be resolved very soon in the Muslim world. But the greater challenge which was addressed by Sheikh Yasir is much more complex and has a more profound effect in society because it comes in the name of reason. And we have this problem in the past. Our moderator referred to that, the problem of the Ahlul Hadith versus Ahlul Ra'yi. And then in philosophy, the Faylasuf represented by Ibn Sina, Al-Farabi, Ibn Rushd on the one hand, versus the Mutakallimun and the Sufi represented by Al-Imam Al-Ghazali. In the case of the Faylasuf, reason is the criterion of right and wrong, whereas in the case of the Ahlul Hadith and also the four madhabs, Al-Wahi, revelation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, provides the criterion of what's right and what is wrong. And human reason is to comply, conform, and submit to the divine revelation as mentioned by Sheikh Yasir. Okay, it's okay, I have the water. Okay, thank you very much. Now this trend of, I would say, neo-rationalism, neo-Mu'tazilism, is in fact very much influenced by the philosophy of postmodernism. This is one of the philosophies that Sheikh Yasir addressed earlier. In postmodernism, there is no more any absolute. For us, Al-Wahi is absolute. Divine revelation is absolute. It provides the absolute criterion, what's right and what's wrong, what's good, what's bad, what's ma'ruf, what's munkar. But for those who subscribe to this neo-modernist idea, neo-Mu'tazilite idea, and liberalism, the text of the Quran will have to be understood purely by human reason. And as a result of this tendency, the Quran, according to them, is, na'udhu billahi min dhalik, is a cultural product. No longer the revelation from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Yes, they will admit that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed the Quran. But the Quran is revealed in a human language and within a particular time, and therefore time, language, the context has in fact influenced divine revelation. And so the Quran is no more the divine kalam of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for all times. It is to them a product of Arab society and culture in the 7th century. And today, according to them, we need a new revelation. We need a new divine revelation, and revelation does not stop. So this is one of the worrying tendencies which we are facing in Indonesia, Malaysia, and in Southeast Asia. Of course, the origin of this thought, to my mind, came from the Middle East, from those scholars of the neo-modernist orientation who believe in the supremacy of reason or in the independence of aqal from divine revelation. Now, in the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us that the Quran, yes, has to be understood by human reason. But it is reason, as Sheikh Yasir said, reason bismi rabbika alladhi khalaq. Reasoning bismi rabbika alladhi khalaq. Because if this is not done, then Allah tells us, kalla innal insana la yatgha ar-ra'ahu istaghna. Mankind tends to transgress the limits imposed by divine revelation. Why? Because the human mind believes that it can survive on its own without divine revelation. As mentioned by Sheikh Yasir, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala provides us two kinds of ayats. One is called the ayat Qur'aniyya, or Sheikh Yusuf mentioned about al-kitab al-mastur, and the other one is ayat kawniyya, or al-kitab al-manzur. Now both types of signs will have to be addressed by the human mind, but based on iman in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Sheikh Yasir emphasizes the importance of understanding with the mind, with the aqal, that is submissive to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, not that which is arrogant or that which considers itself independent of divine revelation. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes in the Quran the characteristics of these people who use the aqal in the proper way in understanding both the Quran, which contains ayat Qur'aniyya, and also in understanding the universe, which contains ayat kawniyya. And these characteristics are found among what the Quran calls ulul albab. The word ulul albab has been translated in various ways by Muslim scholars. Muhammad Asad would call it those endowed with insight. Abdullah Yusuf Ali would call it men of understanding. Maududi would call it people who understand. And according to At-Tabari, this ulul albab, ahlul uqul wal afham. And according to Ibn Kathir, the ulul albab are people who possess al-uqul at-tamma al-zakiyya التي تدرك الأشياء بحقائقها على جلياتها. And Al-Qurtubi defines ulul albab as الذين يستعملون عقولهم في تأمل الدلائل. And Sayyid Qutb describes the ulul albab as أولي الإدراك الصحيح ويفتحون بصائرهم لاستقبال آيات الله الكونية. So these are the different ways by which our scholars define the ulul albab. But in brief, ulul albab are people who possess the reason which is used in the proper way. And it is for this reason that Allah praises the ulul albab. But the ulul albab, to my mind, is not just to comprehend the Quran or the Sunnah in the proper way. The ulul albab, to my mind, is also required to understand the universe. And this is a very important part of my presentation, which also corresponds to what Sheikh Yasir had said about the challenge of science and scientism in today's world. Sheikh Yasir has already mentioned that science is regarded as a way of life because it is based on naturalism, materialism, and also secularism and atheism. But the ulul albab are the Muslim scientists with this iman in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, with the capacity to understand the intricacies, the mysteries of the universe in a very profound way. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us in Surah Al-Imran in verses 190 until 195. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم إن في خلق السماوات والأرض واختلاف الليل والنهار لآيات لأولي الألباب الذين يذكرون الله قياما وقعودا وعلى جنوبهم ويتفكرون في خلق السماوات والأرض ربنا ما خلقت هذا باطلا سبحانك فقنا عذاب النار إلى آخر الآية. I would like all of us to ponder on these verses of Surah Al-Imran, verses 190 until 195, so that we can really comprehend the kind of mentality, the kind of mindset, the kind of worldview, the kind of philosophy that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala requires us to use in order to understand the universe, which is of course now being analyzed by modern science, which is based on secular philosophies. So in this verse, Allah tells us that indeed in the creation of the heavens and the earth, and in the alteration of days and night, there are indeed signs for people who use the aql in the proper way. And these people who use the aql in the proper way have the following attributes: يَذْكُرُونَ اللَّهَ قِيَامًا وَقُعُودًا. They remember Allah all the time. It is the intellect which is always in spiritual connection with the Creator. قُعُودًا وَقِيَامًا وَعَلَى جُنُوبِهِمْ. Whether they are sitting down or whether they are lying on their side, they remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And what they do, as a scientist do, is tafakkur. وَيَتَفَكَّرُونَ فِي خَلْقِ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ. They contemplate, they think very deeply, they analyze, they try to understand the physical processes in the natural phenomena around them. And as a result of this profound contemplation, with the use of the aql together with the spiritual connectivity with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they arrive at this profound truth: رَبَّنَا مَا خَلَقْتَ هَذَا بَاطِلًا سُبْحَانَكَ فَقِنَا عَذَابَ النَّارِ. A truth that is not discovered even today by modern science, with all its sophistication, with its attempt now to land a man on the moon in this century. But they will not arrive at this conclusion that is arrived by the ulul albab who use their reason in the proper way. So I hope, brothers and sisters, we will take this reminder from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that the use of the mind is very important to understand not only the Quran and the Sunnah, but also the universe. And we can only recapture our leadership in the world if we can combine these two ulum aqliya and ulum naqliya together. Sciences of the intellect and sciences of transmitted divine knowledge. We'll have to combine in an educational system that will make us even better, inshallah, than our predecessors. And the world today is looking forward, to my mind, to this kind of solution, the holistic solution, the comprehensive, the integrated solution of people who are described by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as ulul albab, people who use their mind in the proper way with this with this constant spiritual connectivity with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.